Hi, I'm Kristin, and welcome to my channel, From Chronic Fatigue to Chronic Abundance. Welcome to my weekly live Q&A. Every Thursday at 1 p.m. EST, I go live to answer your questions with my take on the answers. Do I have all of the answers? No, absolutely not. I'm just someone who has healed themselves from severe chronic fatigue as a symptom on 3 different occasions. And when I say I mean I healed myself, I mean I went from unable to work out, mostly housebound, severe brain fog, the works, to having my life fully, completely back, crashing, recovering, relapsing, recovering. Okay. The reason I have this YouTube channel is because what actually helped me heal and what has now kept me well for the past 4 years since my last recovery is not something I see talked about often enough. I have a cough drop in. I have a little bit of post-nasal drip that's been acting up, and this will keep me from coughing the whole time. What actually helped me heal is not something I see talked about. I'm here to share with you what actually worked. And then people very quickly jump in and say, oh, what supplements did you take? What doctor did you use? What blood work did you get done? And the thing is, all 3 separate occasions needed different things. Each time I healed, I needed different supplements, different blood work, different doctors, different practitioners to help me. There is no one path to health when you're living with severe chronic fatigue. If there were, we'd know what it is by now and we'd all have done it, okay? But I'm one human being and I needed 3 different plans to heal. So what are the things that helped me heal every time? The one thing that helped me heal every single time was my mindset. I wasn't born with this mindset. I didn't have the healing mindset when I got sick. I had to develop the healing mindset during my first full-on health crisis at the age of 25. It took me a couple years, about 2.5 years of being severely ill before I developed that mindset. I saw lots of doctors, I took lots of supplements, had tons and tons of blood work done, and nothing really worked until I fixed my mindset. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't in my head. It definitely wasn't in my head. There were definitely things off with my body that needed to be diagnosed and treated. However, whether you're severely ill or healthy, the fact is our mindset, which shapes our thoughts and our behaviors, influences our energy in a big way. It also influences our body's ability to heal in a massive way. The truth is, when we're living with the wrong mindset, it creates a ton of stress. And stress is a physiological change in our bodies. It is our bodies fundamentally changing the way it works. And when we are in that stress state, our bodies cannot heal. We need to change our mindsets to shape our thoughts and behaviors, to get us out of the stress response, to calm that stress response down, and to activate the body's natural antidote to stress, which we all contain within us all of the time. We just need to have the right behaviors and thoughts in place to activate the body's antidote to stress. It's called the parasympathetic nervous system. It's the body's rest and digest and heal response in the body. And we need to be living in that dominant state in order to allow our bodies to heal themselves. So even though I had found the right supplements that I needed at the time, the first time I was severely ill, they were barely helping me because my body couldn't fully utilize the treatments I was taking. I had to get out of the stress response and into parasympathetic nervous system dominance more of the time in my daily life so that the treatments I was taking could actually start working well for me, start working fast, and I could see big, major change in my health journey. All right. That's the short and sweet version of it. Hi, Lisa. Glad to see you're here. Hey, Anna. So if there's anyone new watching, the way this works is you just type up your questions in the chat box over here. I will go through them in order. There's no question too big or too small, too personal or too weird or too anything. We talk about just about anything here. You're not going to offend me with any questions. If I don't feel comfortable talking about it, I'll just say that, but there hasn't been anything like that yet. All right. So Anna says, last time I talked about the ups and downs in my journey, the highs and the lows when I was at my most unwell, when I recovered, relapsed again, that whole cycle of ups and downs, really, really hard to go through. But the healing mindset helps create hope and motivation for you to keep going. And it asks, can you talk in more detail about the time that I first started healing from the point of discovering the iodine deficiency? So when I look back on it, I don't think of discovering the iodine deficiency as when I started to heal, because there was, gosh, a full 2 years between when I discovered the iodine deficiency and when I actually started to heal. There's a big, big gap there. So like the timeline was, I had my first energy crash, my first collapse in July 2010. I discovered, my doctors were completely helpless and oblivious during this time, like all 6 of them I had seen at that period. I discovered the iodine deficiency in, I want to say very, very early 2011, like maybe like January 2011, maybe December 2010, maybe January 2011. I discovered the iodine deficiency by consulting Dr. Google and actually finding a blogger who had been diagnosed with iodine deficiency and talked about her symptoms of iodine deficiency. And I was like, oh my God, like this is me. How did my doctors never catch this? And then of course I confirmed that with not a blood test, a urine test I ordered online that showed me a severely iodine deficient. I took that to my doctor and asked my doctor to do blood work for iodine deficiency to get a formal diagnosis. And sure enough, it confirmed severe iodine deficiency. At that same time, we looked at my thyroid. I had autoimmune hyperthyroidism, also known as Hashimoto's hyperthyroidism. So those were discovered. I think the hyperthyroidism was discovered February 2011. So at that point, the iodine deficiency and the autoimmune hyperthyroidism could have explained all of my symptoms. So we thought that we had just found the solution, because in February 2011, I was getting to the point where I was really afraid I wasn't going to be able to continue working my office job. I was really, really concerned about not being able to work. As someone who had just turned 26 at that point, it's a very scary prospect when you're that young. It's a scary prospect at any age. But the reality was that the supplementing with iodine and getting on the right thyroid medication, that's a whole other story, did help me. But it was like just a little like blip. It was almost like things got like a little better, and then they kind of settled back down to not being super great. Like maybe I was like 1 or 2 steps better, but it didn't feel like an improvement in my quality of life a few months into that diagnosis and being on that supplement and that medication. What do I want to say about that? Let's see. Let me check in with the comments. Lisa, she has been mostly in a flare for a month or so, and you don't know if it's triggered from this COVID stress. Could be. It could be random. The timing, I doubt it's random, to be honest. Like I'm having to really spend extra time managing my stress, really checking in with myself. You don't know if you're going to Florida in May. Lisa, from what I've been hearing lately, probably not. It doesn't look like travel restrictions will be lifted until maybe sometime this summer, but like, who knows? That's the whole thing. There's so much uncertainty. Who knows? And if you do, you could get sick. Yeah, uncertainty is really, really big. It's funny. Uncertainty, the word uncertainty has been coming up a lot in my conversations. A lot of people are really struggling with so much uncertainty. Lisa's going through headaches, shortness of breath, chest wall, fatigue and tightness, tachycardia, hot, too cold, and they're all increased and on a rampage. What worries me a little bit, Lisa, is like some of those things you're explaining are symptoms of COVID-19. Not everyone who has COVID-19 has a fever. I've read that that's a very common symptom, but it's not something everybody has. So if you think you could be coming down with something, this is really the time to like be as kind to yourself as you can. Like, I think we all need to acknowledge the massive changes we've made in our lives and how much effort and time and energy goes into all of these changes we've had to react to. And especially all of the stress, all of the thought, all of the emotional burden that we're all going through. Like, we have to acknowledge the extra emotional energy it's requiring for us to process this news, to stay abreast of it, to take care of ourselves, to worry about our loved ones, to check in with them, to do all the things that we need to do extra during this pandemic. And then hopefully really being extra kind. And if you're feeling extra flared like Lisa is, to really just spend more time doing the things you need to do to stay as well as possible. Maybe that's moving less. Maybe it's doing more things that bring you joy. Maybe it's finding new anxiety management techniques. Maybe it's checking in with your family more often. I don't know what it is for you, but it's definitely worth it for you to figure out some of those things that are going to leave you feeling a little more whole and safe and sane when we have so much change going on. Let's see. Anna says, interesting. When she was 26, she had the same thing with vitamin D. You thought that was it, but that wasn't it. It was one of the many things. Like I tell you, the iodine deficiency was the first of many, many things we discovered wrong with my body. Many, 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 many. Okay. And all these things we discovered that were wrong, that I needed to correct, to get better. This was after I had 10 or so doctors look at me, do all the blood work, and all tell me all your blood work's fine. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. They weren't doing the right blood work because they weren't trained to. Let's see. Okay, Lisa says they're her usual flare symptoms. All right, so that's great that you know what your flare symptoms are and what those feel like in your body, and you know the difference between your normal flares versus something else going on in your body. That's great, and I'm happy it's not something else. Because at least you know what this is and you've gotten through these flares before, Lisa. Like, you know what you need to do. Maybe it takes a while, but like, you know what needs to happen. Maybe it's enjoying yourself more. Maybe it's resting more. Actually, what are those things that have gotten you through your flare-ups in the past? It could help others to really hear about what those things are and how you're going to bring more of that into your life again. All right, Anna says, okay, now she knows about CFS. She thinks her mindset is great. I think so too. You found a doctor who is testing vitamins and everything. Okay, so Anna's interested in how I felt and what I did at that time. All right. I can definitely get to that. All right. And then I'll go to the other questions below that. So how I felt and what I did at the time. So, man, when I first got my iodine deficiency and autoimmune hypothyroidism diagnoses, I felt like this is it. I was on cloud 9. I was like, oh my God, it's been like 6, 7, 8 months of like my body just progressively falling apart, of having no energy, of sleeping 14 hours a day, of not being able to walk a block without getting lightheaded, of struggling with severe brain fog while trying to work. I was like, oh my God, we have the answers. And I was on cloud 9. And then, of course, like a month or two later, after I'd started taking iodine and taking a thyroid pill, we realized that this wasn't it. And it was heartbreaking. It was absolutely devastating to realize those weren't the end all be all answers to my health problems. It was soul crushing to realize that like I had this huge mountain of like health issues and recovery ahead of me. And like the iodine and the thyroid issues were just like the first 2 steps up that mountain. It was completely clear to me because the day after I took iodine for the first time, oh my God, I remember that day. I remember that day so clearly. The day after I first took iodine, I thought I had my whole life back. I went from barely being able to walk down the sidewalk without getting like lightheaded and short of breath. I took a jog. I felt so good. I took a jog the next day. I could think, I could breathe, I could move, elated. But within a week, all of those temporary gains had gone away. My body had given me the message that yes, I need iodine, and giving me iodine is a good thing. And then it gave me the message that like, okay, this is great, but we got other problems still. And it was emotionally just devastating. But finding these answers and finding the answers because of my own resilience, because of my own determination to find out what's going wrong, and my own abilities to hunt down what I needed. Like, I didn't have the answers, but I knew how to find the answers. I knew how to find someone who had my answers. I was like, okay, I've done this once. I figured this out. I've solved this problem once. I've got a ton more problems to solve. Rinse and repeat, right? So I would say like that was what came out of me in my low point, and that devastation of, oh my God, there's so much more that's wrong with me. I went through that. I bounced off that bottom. And it became about just sheer determination, sheer stubbornness to figure out what the hell was going wrong. To not believe the doctors who said, well, if you still don't feel well, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. Like, I think even the doctor who like never diagnosed my iodine deficiency until I came up with it, and never looked at my thyroid until the iodine deficiency was there. They said, oh, this should be it. And if it's not, then like, just don't worry about it. You're fine. I knew they were wrong. And I was there not to prove them wrong, but I was there to be there for myself in the way that nobody else was being there for me at that point. And maybe my upbringing really prepared me for that. Like, I was always a loner. Like, even in my large household, I'm one of 4 girls, the oldest of 4 girls. So I was always made to be very independent. I was always had to take care of myself so my parents could focus on my younger sisters who needed more attention than me. So it's just another instance of like, okay, Kristin's got to take care of herself. No one's here for Kristin. Kristin has to be here for herself. So that's what I did. As they're going online, I spent months looking for the right people to help me, for the right diagnoses, for the right treatments. And I realized quickly how complex treating these types of issues is. And I knew that I couldn't effectively take myself down the path of supplementation, because each supplement can have so many like consequences, positive and negative. And there's so many cofactors and supporting things. And like, it's really, really intense. And the way my brain was not functioning at that time, I knew I needed someone to guide me through that. So my focus really became on finding the right people to help me. And I've talked about this before. I found a couple different people at different times who helped me take a few more steps on my healing journey. They weren't the end all be all. They didn't know everything. They didn't find everything that was wrong with me, but they helped me through some stages. I was in an abusive relationship at the time when I was first falling ill. I was getting into that abusive relationship. I was in the abusive relationship when I got those first 2 diagnoses of iodine deficiency and hypothyroidism. And I stayed in that terrible, terrible abusive relationship for about 2.5 years. Pretty much the first 2.5 years of my first health crisis. And that didn't help. In fact, that definitely hurt my ability to heal. So as hard as it is, I can say from personal experience that it is worth the energy and the effort and the time to leave a toxic home environment if that's what you're in, because a year down the road, like moving, getting out of a toxic situation is going to be extremely draining. It is most likely going to cause you to crash, maybe horribly. But a year down the road, you're going to be in a much better position if you can get yourself into a healthy environment to heal in. It's going to be worth it. So yeah, so I think that's like high level how I was feeling at that time. And then it just became like just the sheer dogged determination to figure out what the hell was going wrong with me. So 2011 was a weird year for work. I was still working the first few months of 2011. And then I think it was June, July, August of 2011, I took they called it a long-term leave of absence, a 3-month leave of absence where I could go and I could leave and I could heal and I could come back and still have a job. And I obviously didn't want to do that. I put that off for much longer than I should have. Um, but I did take that time off of work, May, June, no, no, June, July, August, 2011. And when I left work, I did get better for a while. I did get quite a bit better. I wasn't able to like work out again and stuff. But I did go back to work with a lot more energy than I had when I left. So I was back in September, October, November. I was back for 3 months until I just my health continued to deteriorate again from there. And it got to the point where I couldn't even like get in the office and work for 2 hours from my laptop. I couldn't even like physically do that, let alone mentally do that. I couldn't work from home on my laptop in bed for an hour a day. And that in November 2011 was when I finally became completely unable to work and had to just leave my job and be jobless. It was terrifying. So that was a really, really hard, scary time for me because I didn't have any more answers. I didn't have anyone at that moment in time who could help me. I was just really on my own. Thank God. I had always been big about saving money. So I had savings to get me through that time. I also had an app that I was selling at the time, and that brought in not anywhere near enough to live off of, but it brought in some money every month to take the edge off of me living off of my savings. So really, really scary time for me then, 2011. Like 2010 when it started all through 2011 was just, just me getting knocked down and my health getting worse and worse and worse. There's that little like high blip of the iodine deficiency diagnosis and taking the iodine and the thyroid stuff. And then that quickly flattened back out just a couple steps above where I had been and became unemployed 8-9 months after those diagnoses happened. All right, let me scroll back up. Whew. So much good stuff happening in the comments today. Wait a second. I feel like I lost where I was. Oh, Lisa said she's fallen by the wayside with meditation. It's definitely time to up that meditation again then. Or maybe meditation isn't what you need right now, because the thing about living with a lot of uncertainty is that it generates a lot of anxiety. And if we try to meditate while we have anxiety, we're going to just sit with that anxiety. And sometimes we're just going to amplify that anxiety the whole time we're sitting there meditating. So if the uncertainty is generating low levels of anxiety or generating constant low levels of stress, it's really about feeling into the source of that and really understanding in yourself why these situations are generating the feelings that they're generating. Because if you can get to the source of something, it's usually easier to clear that emotion, and then you can be free to meditate and bring yourself into a lighter energy place instead of a heavier energy place. For example, I talked about the panic attack I had a couple weeks ago, and I've had a couple of them since this pandemic started, and I've never had panic attacks in my life before, ever. So one of the times I had a panic attack was I heard the rumor that they were going to enact martial law here within Philadelphia to keep people indoors. And that felt very severe to me. Like the stay-at-home orders are one thing, but martial law would be like the military on the streets with guns keeping people inside, right? And that created a panic attack in me, just hearing that rumor. And I knew it was a rumor. induced a massive panic attack where my thoughts spiraled. I could barely breathe. I was struggling to get in a full breath. I was getting kind of like tingly and lightheaded, and was just kind of like getting lost in that panic. And I was able to breathe my way through it, calm myself down, get out of the intensity of the panic. And I had to sit there with that emotion for a while and be like, okay, like what about this scenario is triggering me? And the way I did that is I really just allowed all of those big feelings to come up. I got comfortable with being uncomfortable in those heavy emotions. And then I started asking myself questions. I started asking myself, okay, I know that this panic is happening in response to the idea of martial law. What about martial law seems so terrifying to me? And the first thing that popped into my head, the first response my body gave me was freedom. I felt like my freedom was at risk. My ability to just go out and move about in the world freely was at risk. And that terrified me. And I go, okay, why does it terrify me that my freedom is at risk? And I'm like, well, if we're under martial law, I won't be able to leave the apartment whenever I want to. And I go, okay, well, why is it a problem for me if I can't leave the apartment whenever I want to? And I kind of had to sit on that emotion for a while and really feel into it and feel into it. And when I get stuck on things like that, the trick out of it is usually to ask myself, like, okay, what about my childhood made this scary for me? What are things in my childhood? What experiences did I have that shaped how I'm responding to this right now? And as soon as I asked myself that, it became very clear. I said, oh yeah, like as a kid, my freedom, my sanity, my ability to feel safe was me being able to leave the house. Like there was always a lot of noise and there was a lot of emotions and energies and a lot of yelling in my house sometimes. With four little girls, like you have a loud, noisy, rambunctious, chaotic house. And the way I cared for myself was just to leave. I would go out in the yard and play. I would go out in the woods and play. I'd go over to the neighbor's house and play. I would go ride my bike around the neighborhood. Once I turned 16, I would hop in my car and I would just drive when I didn't want to be home. So even though like the home situation I have right now is a very safe, very loving one, I'm very happy and okay being stuck in this apartment with my boyfriend and with our pets. Like it's good. It didn't matter about my current situation because my brain, my lizard brain, my primal brain was reacting to those old thought patterns because those are what get not hardwired. They're what get wired into our brains. And until we as adults learn how to rewire our brains, that's what our lizard brain continues to react from. So once I said, oh, this is about my old childhood fear of being stuck in the house with things that didn't make me feel comfortable and things that didn't keep me feeling safe. And once I really sat with that, I was able to then realize like, oh, let's bring like the present situation into that feeling and let's feel how safe we are here and let's ground ourselves in the present moment. And since then, I haven't had any panic attacks or anxieties around not being able to leave the apartment. It's okay because I worked through those underlying emotions and got myself past that. It's eliminated some of that low grade stress and anxiety, and it's eliminated the panic attacks from that source anyway. So an example of how to do that. All right, let's see. Hi, Chicker Bebo. Chicker Bebo. I'm not sure how I should be pronouncing that. I'm going to say Chicker Bebo. It is pouring outside right now, you guys. Wow. Let's see. Have I had light and sound sensitivity? Hi, Addison. Yes, I have had light and sound sensitivity. Absolutely. It's pretty common for people who have like severe chronic fatigue as a symptom, whether you're diagnosed with ME/CFS or lupus or fibromyalgia or even Lyme's disease. It's very, very common to have sensory sensitivity, not just to light and sound, but also to hot and cold. As for why, I don't know. My guess is that, it actually takes quite a bit of energy for the body to take in all the sensory input and then constantly be responding to it. And the body just runs out of energy to continuously respond to all of this like high level input. So it definitely helps to be in darker rooms, to not be in front of glowing screens all the time, to have quieter lighting at night, to use noise canceling headphones if you're going to be somewhere noisy, like on a train or a plane or a car. It absolutely helps to decrease the light and noise that you're exposed to. And if you're extremely sensitive to those things, then it makes sense to take extreme measures to limit your exposure to those. It really has to do with how sensitive you are, is how much you should be protecting yourself from those, Addison. Yeah. So Lisa chimes in. She says she's had light and sound sensitivity pretty badly in the beginning. It got better and it only bothers her here or there. That's cool. Oh, I also want to add, Lisa also had smell sensitivity. I wouldn't say I had smell sensitivity, but I do feel like I had a mild case of multiple chemical sensitivity. I know multiple chemical sensitivity, some people kind of take that as its own like disease or something. But I think it has to do with the fact that the body becomes very limited in the energy and resources it has to expand on dealing with things that we're taking into our body. And there's so many chemicals and things that when we breathe them in, it can make us feel sick because our bodies don't have the energy or resources to handle all of this crap coming into our bodies. I do want to say that I never had to directly address the sensory input sensitivity or the multiple chemical sensitivity. Those things just went away as I worked on my energy. For what it's worth, that was my experience with those. Anna says sometimes she feels like a detective because of the searching what your body needs. Yeah, Anna, you are. Like, that's literally what most of us need to be doing. We need to be hunting down the clues. We need to be finding the answers. We're leading the search. No one's going to lead the search for us. You know, it's a very good analogy. Anna says she feels like doctor and patient at the same time. Sometimes the doctor part takes over and you're researching people and supplements, and sometimes and causes it sometimes takes over, like researching instead of sleep. Yeah, that's not good. Sleep is foundational for health. Yeah, totally get that, Anna, because you kind of are. Shouldn't have to be, but shouldn't doesn't have anything to do with it. There's is and there isn't. Let's see. Lisa was in a toxic relationship for 20 years and she crashed with her health. After she left and after surgery, infection, the medical reaction, but she thinks she would be dead if she was still with that ex. And I really understand that point of view of how draining, not just emotionally draining, not just energy draining, but like being in a toxic relationship, living with a person who is toxic to you is draining to your life force. It sucks out your hope and your motivation and your belief in yourself to continue on and to solve your own problems and to take care of yourself. And that's a very, very dangerous thing to lose. It's one thing to lose your health, one thing to lose your energy, but it's a whole other level of problem to lose your hope and motivation and your belief in yourself. Those are the foundation for getting through anything in life, whether it's health issues, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's losing your job, whether it's losing your business. These will get you through anything, having hope and motivation and belief in yourself. Let's see. Hi, Peter. You have a question about suicidal thoughts and depression. You're usually very, very motivated, but sometimes it hits you hard. And as the time goes, you find your motivation is depleting. You believe you're applying many beneficial things to your life, so you feel frustrated when the results aren't there to justify the effort. Okay, Peter, you're in a very, very common place. I think we've probably all been there at some point where we're like, oh my God, I'm doing all of the right things. Why aren't I getting better? Like, what am I missing? Am I ever going to find it? This has been so hard. It takes so much energy and work, and I'm already so tired. Like, that That's completely relatable. And honestly, it's totally fine. Like it's completely healthy to have thoughts like that, to question what's going on, to take a hard look and admit what isn't working. All right? And it's natural to feel depressed about that. It's natural to wonder why bother. At the same time, I don't want to see you dwelling in those thoughts. I want you to be able to have those thoughts and see them and take the message away from them that your body's trying to give you. When we have these types of thoughts of like, why bother? What am I doing here? None of this is working. It's a wake-up call to say, hey, what you've been doing isn't enough. It isn't right. We need something else. Okay? And and the healing mindset is about being able to have those thoughts, take the message away from them, like, okay, something needs to change, and still holding on to that hope and that motivation and belief in yourself to figure this out, even if it's taking way more time, effort, and energy than you ever hoped that it would, you know? I want to say, let's see. Yeah, I love what Lisa says. She says the emotional side of being chronically sick is real. She has horrible moments of fear, depression, anger, etc. It's not easy. And Lisa's had a long journey with this now, and she's gotten quite a bit better over the time. She's had her ups and downs, her cycles, but she has been able to see progress through this because it is possible. So, Peter, what I would want to say to you is that, as much as you're focusing on what isn't working, take a little bit of time to focus on what is working. Think about when you were at your worst and think about where you're at now. It sounds like you've made some progress. It sounds like you've brought in some things that have made a difference. Equally acknowledge the things that are working well for you. It's important to not get too skewed, not too focused on what isn't working. It's about keeping a balanced, realistic focus of what is and is not working. Okay, so I'd take a little extra time to give yourself credit for where you have gotten and then reassess. All right, this is the time to say, okay, what I'm doing right now isn't working. What do I need to do differently? Do I need to look for another doctor? Because like I talked about earlier, like it is extremely hard to do the supplement game on your own without doctor supervision, without someone who's done this with hundreds or thousands of other patients, who understands the biochemistry at play, the extreme complexity at play, who understands what your responses to each supplement mean. So let me give you an example. So my body, for whatever reason, responds very strangely to quite a few supplements. I mean, there are supplements that in 99% of the population have very, very straightforward effects. And I take them, and sometimes I'll have the opposite effect, or I'll have a whole new side effect that the doctor's never heard of or never seen before, but it's very consistent and repeatable in me. Like I can start the supplement and stop it and start it and stop it and like prove that like this supplement is doing this weird, bizarre thing to me that no one ever expected. So if I tried to play the supplement game on my own, I would have been completely lost because my body is weird. I don't know if your body is weird or not. But I'm saying this because don't beat yourself up if you can't figure out all the supplements you need. It is not something one person is going to figure out on their own body from trial and error when they have severe health issues like this. We need somebody with the experience and the guidance, and then someone with the experience and the knowledge to guide us through what our bodies need. We need someone who understands the big picture of the body and the big picture of health and healing, and they understand the different stages, and they can see where we're at. They can see what parts of health and healing we need. They can see what blood work to do. They know how to interpret the blood work. They know how to support the things that are going wrong in our bodies. I mean, I was on for a while, for like 6 months, maybe longer than 6 months. There was a period in my life where I was taking every single day 150 pills, 150 pills every day of my life. 6-7 times a day I was taking pills. Okay? Like pill management was a massive part of my daily life for a long time. I could never, ever, ever, ever have come up with that supplement plan that worked on my own. It took me 2 years of working with the same doctor before we dialed in everything that I needed in the right doses and managed everything as my needs fluctuated. I started, I stopped, I tried new, like we monitored symptoms, and like it was an insane amount of work, and I couldn't have done it without a doctor who knew what they were doing. And from quite a few of the people I know who have healed, they needed someone to guide them through that too. There's there's no one I personally know who healed just from researching things on the internet and figuring out their own healing journey. I don't know anybody who figured out all the supplements they need in the right doses and the right proportions and the right everything. Everyone I know worked with someone, who had either lived through this and gotten themselves better, which I've used one of those people to help me. They didn't get me all the way, but they got me a lot of the way. Or they found a doctor who specializes in poorly understood diseases that fall through the cracks of the conventional medical system. All right. Or some other practitioner. Maybe they're not a licensed MD, but they're some other practitioner who's outside conventional medicine, who has spent years and years studying this stuff and has a very broad, very deep knowledge of the things that it takes to heal from this. So, Peter, I don't know your background. I don't know I don't know who you're working with, if you're working with anybody. I don't know how you're choosing the doctors, because here's the thing. You can't just choose any doctor. You can't even just choose any holistic or functional medicine doctor. You've really got to do some like research and diligence to find the right type of person to work with. I talk about that in other videos. I can't think of which one's off the top of my head right now. Do I want to do a search? I feel like it's going to take me too long to do a search to pull some of those up right now. But it's definitely in my older videos about how to find doctors, how to interview doctors, how to fire doctors, all that stuff. So if you don't have the right doctor, I would definitely make that your number one priority right now, to find the right doctor or practitioner or whoever to work with, to guide you through this process. I would make that your number one thing that you do. All right, Addison, you noticed if you're happy, you don't notice most of your symptoms or don't think about them. Strange. I would say that's not super strange, because of the relationship between stress and ill health on the body. There's also this tendency we have of, when we feel good, we start to tell ourselves like, oh, I'm good. I'm better today. I can do whatever I want. And we start focusing on things outside of ourselves. We start focusing on the rest of our lives when we feel well, and then we crash. And then it can become a cycle of like, oh, I'm not feeling well. Let me pay a lot of attention to myself and monitor myself. And then, oh, I feel better. I'm going to focus on all the million things around me and try to be productive and just ignore my body. So I don't know what's happening for you, Addison. But it could be that very common cycle of like, when you're well, you just choose to focus on other things until you crash. Or it could be that when you're stressed, you literally can't be happy and stressed at the same time. Like the two can't coexist in the body. You're either happy or you're feeling stressed. And when you're not happy, if you're feeling stressed, it's going to influence, stress has been shown to influence how much pain we feel. It influences the way our body functions. And if you're in the stress mode, it could be really exacerbating and making worse a lot of the symptoms that you have. And when you're happy, that exacerbation isn't there anymore. So it could be that you just have fewer symptoms or less intense symptoms, depending on where your body's at and where your health is at and where you're at on the spectrum of abilities and all that, depending on a lot of things. So those are just two ideas, Addison, as to like why that could be, where that could be coming from. We'd have to know a lot more about your background to dig more into those details. If you want to share, feel free to do so. We can talk about it more. If not, that's okay too. Lisa says she notices that sometimes as well. When you're happy, you don't notice it as much. You feel happy and better on vacation. You usually feel better at piano lessons because you like your teacher, but now you're doing it remotely via FaceTime, so it's not the same. Yeah. Lisa was going to join a sewing class also to keep the spirit up, but now you can't because of social isolation and because it's not essential. Yeah. Lisa stopped her pill regimen a month ago. Oh, that could be why you're flaring. On top of the virus stress. Okay, Lisa, I want to ask, why did you stop your pill regimen a month ago? And why have you not picked it back up since you're flaring? You can't find all the pills now because the stores are empty. You order some online, but they don't know when shipping is. Um, I'm using a I still take supplements. I've talked about this before. I still take supplements for general health because like there are things we just don't get from our food anymore. I like to support my body through like honestly, I've started taking a B vitamin again because of all the stress we're going through. I feel like my body can use that extra support right now. I still have low stomach acid, so I still need to supplement with stomach acid pills. I still take quite a bit of vitamin C because it makes me feel good. And this website, they didn't have any stock issues when I actually just got a couple boxes in last week from them. So Lisa, if you need supplements, I would check out that website. They seem to have, oh no, actually, okay, maybe I take that back. It says due to order volume, shipping currently delayed up to 4 days. All right, so at least these guys know when they're shipping. They know they're shipping 4 days late, which is probably better than some places are. So if you really need supplements, Lisa, I would recommend checking out that site. Their prices seem to be in line with other places I bought these supplements. I get 10% off because my doctor has like an account with them. So like because I order them through my doctor's, not through his account, my own account, but because like he referred me to them, I get like 10% off. I don't think I can give you 10% off. I don't think they would like let me do that because I'm not a doctor, unfortunately. But if you really need something, I would check them out. Lisa orders weird stuff. Lisa, don't we all? Yeah, weird stuff. I get it. Yeah. All right, Anna. Anna wants more story time. What happened after I moved away from the bad relationship? So I ended that relationship like November. Let's see. Okay. So we talked about July 2010 when all this started. When I was working out in a CrossFit gym in 100-degree weather in Philadelphia when it was extremely humid. And I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, proverbially. It was the stressor that maxed my body out beyond its ability to recover and heal normally, what kicked off my severe chronic fatigue issues. And then 2011, we talked about my diagnoses I got in that year. We talked about the 3 months I took off of work. We talked about how I ended up leaving work in like November 2011 because of my health was so poor. Leaving work was the last thing I wanted to do. I hung on as long as I possibly could. I didn't leave until I was in the office. I'd been in the office for 2 hours one morning, and I had a really hard time just physically getting my body to work that morning. It was extremely hard. 10 a.m. hits. I can feel a crash coming. I stand up to go run to my hiding spot in the office to have my crash in private, like I've been doing more and more often. And my body was like, fuck this. We're done pretending. We're done running. We're done hiding. My body was like, I just stood up and I crashed on the floor in front of a table of my coworkers. It was like the most mortifying thing that ever happened to me to that point in my life. And that was when I couldn't hide it anymore, and I had to tell like all my coworkers about what was going on, and I couldn't keep pushing myself anymore. If I couldn't even make it 2 hours in one morning, I was like the next, they gave me like a couple days off, and like I didn't really recover from that point. Like it just stayed extremely bad, and I had to leave work. So at that point, left my job. I was living with the guy I was dating at that time. And I lived with him for a whole year after that. I lived with him until like November, December. It was December 2012. So I was out of work, home 24/7. He worked full time out of the house. But like we were together like all the time when he wasn't at work. And it was bad. It was really, really bad. So like 2012 was a really, really hard year. Kept trying to see a few doctors. No one had answers for me. Like mid 2012, mid to like late 2012, I finally found the health coach I've talked about before. She was someone who had gone through a very similar thing as me. We were even in the same industry with the same career. We were both software consultants for big global companies. And we both had like our camel, like our straw that broke the camel's back moment. And then our bodies just completely collapsed on us. Her health was even worse than mine. She'd been diagnosed with like 9 different autoimmune disorders. And like she was so sensitive to pain, she couldn't even stand because the bottoms of her feet would be in excruciating pain. Like she really went through poorer health than I did. And she figured out how to heal herself. She learned how to heal herself and became a health coach. So I worked with her. And people always ask, she doesn't do health coaching anymore because it is extremely hard to make money, to make a living as a health coach. And like one of the things she learned from healing from this is that she needs to look out for herself and she needs to create an easy, abundant life. So she got out of health coaching and no longer does that. Can't blame her. I personally don't blame her. And she was expensive, but like once I researched her and learned more of her story and did like a free intro call with her, it was clear to me that she was the person to work with. And she taught me a lot. She finally helped me make sense of some of the blood work I had done before. She couldn't order blood work, but she got me on some of the supplements I really needed to be on, and they were like helping like a little bit. Like everything she told me to do, I was doing it exactly as she told me to, and I was doing it perfectly. But the progress, like Peter, the progress was like this big. And I went to her one day and I'm like, I'm doing everything perfectly. We know what's going on. You've been there. You know how to get through it. I'm on all the right supplements, but like, it isn't working. Like, what the fuck is going on? And all this was over the phone coaching. And there was this like big long pause on the line. And I could feel her like weighing her words very carefully. And she says, yes, you're doing everything perfectly. You're doing all of the outside physical things perfectly. She says, maybe you also need to work on your inner world. And that was really a turning point for me. That was when I was like, okay, I've tried everything physically and I'm doing everything physically perfect. Maybe I do need to go inside and work on my mind and my emotions and all that stuff. And she got me into meditation. And that really changed things for me. Once I started getting into meditation, I started caring about my inner world. I started learning how stressed out I was. Pretty much every second of my life, I was living very stressed, very anxious, very, very unhealthy in that way, even though everything else was perfect. And through meditation and learning to calm myself down and learning to get out of the stress response and into parasympathetic nervous system dominance and learning to care about myself, that was what gave me the realization and the motivation to leave the bad relationship I was in. That was what gave me the self-esteem and the self-awareness to say, oh, I'm in a toxic relationship, and giving him excuses all the time and telling myself he doesn't really mean it and he's going to change doesn't help me and it doesn't help him. This is like being in this relationship in this house is harming my health and harming my health journey. This guy needs help. I can't give him. I'm leaving. Like if it was only because of that internal work I did that I left. And so I had already started healing and already felt some of that like life coming back into my body, which was amazing. And when I decided to leave, I felt even more of that. Like it was really hard. It was very draining. It was kind of scary. It was actually quite scary at some points, because of how he was abusive. I'll just be super honest. Like all these things I'm talking about where like I cared about myself and I realized I needed to leave, there was still, it still took a really serious moment for me to leave. He, I don't know how much of this story I like want to share. Basically, he had been out in a dog park and some other dog had attacked his dog. So naturally, he wanted to defend his dog. Like that's okay. I'm okay with like wanting to defend your animal that's being attacked. And he like kicked this other dog off of his dog. Which, okay. But what he did is he went over to that other dog and just kept kicking it and kicking it and kicking it and kicking it. And he said, when he was done, the dog wasn't moving. The owner was just standing there, like in shock, unable to do or say anything. And he just left. And we don't know what happened to that other dog. And when he told me, I wasn't there, I didn't see it, but he came home and he was very shaken. And he told me what happened. I was like, that could be me someday. I need to go. Right. So it still took a huge, huge moment to get me to leave. But if I hadn't been working on my inner world at that point, I may still not have left even after I learned that he did that. I may have still been in the habit of making excuses for him and saying he'll change and saying he didn't really mean it. And oh, he feels so bad. None of that matters. And the act of leaving, the act of physically moving my stuff was of course extremely hard. When I first left, I wasn't really getting myself into much of a better situation. I was going back home to my parents, which being home with my parents is an extremely stressful, extremely anxiety inducing, extremely draining situation for me. It was still better than being in that abusive situation, but not a good one. And thank God I had a very good friend at the time who invited me to come live with her. She says, I have an extra room in my place. Why don't you come stay with me for a while? And I moved states. I had to find someone to drive me down there, drive me and my stuff down there. I had one carload of stuff. That was it. Not very much at all. And I got out, and it wasn't until like I was out and I was in this new place at my friend's house, and like life was just simple and life was calm. I really began to experience huge gains in my health because I didn't realize how much energy was being drained out of me by having to constantly manage myself and my partner in a toxic situation. So all of that energy I used to waste on that relationship was now staying within myself. My body was now able to use it to heal. My body was now in parasympathetic nervous system dominance way more often because I was in a calm, happy place away from all that stress and negativity and abuse. And my health really took off over that year. That was like 2013. I moved down like just after, it was like late December 2012 or like early January 2013 when I moved down to North Carolina. But that year of 2013, living down there, living so cheaply, but healing in a more positive, happy space was incredible. Like hands down, the best thing I ever did for myself to that point. Like it enabled my healing to get out of that bad situation and get into a good one. And then by like late 2013, I was able to start working part-time from home again, which was great. I picked up, I think like 5 or 10 hours a week. That was all I could handle. I think it was like August 2013. I could handle like 5 or 10 hours a week from my laptop from home. And then slowly over the rest of the year, I would ramp up my hours a little bit and a little bit and a little bit until February 2014, I was able to work in an office full time again. I had my life back. I was working out, working in an office, planning for the future, going on trips and vacations and seeing friends and family and like enjoying life again in 2014. So that was the first health crash and the first recovery. All right, so that answers Anna's question. Answers some of it anyway. Let's see, Lisa orders specific strains of probiotics, black seed oil, potassium citrate. I don't know PQQ. Yeah, I mean, I know, yeah, this company, this Wellevate has black seed oil. They actually have several different brands. Like, I think Wellevate, the website I shared, specializes in like holistic medicine and functional medicine doctors and the types of supplements that they recommend to their patients. So you'll probably find a lot of the things. You won't find every single thing that you take, but you'll find a lot of it on there. Oh, Peter, I really, really feel you on this one. You said you spend a lot of money on alternative doctors and you fear that you will run out of cash without actually getting proper help from them. I have been there. I know that fear. I know that fear. And that's a big reason why I say you can't just go to any doctor, because there's a lot of doctors out there, alternative doctors out there who aren't good. There are doctors out there who are good, but aren't the right doctor for you and your health problems. It's hard. You've really got to have the right criteria and the right framework in place to evaluate doctors before committing a significant amount of time and money to them. You're going to have to go see a doctor like once or twice, but I would always, always, always treat the first visit or two like an interview. They need to prove that they're the right person for you to hire as your help in this, right? The person you need to hire to help you solve your health problems, kind of looking at it like you're the boss and like, are they the right person to bring on board? Yes or no? And a lot of the times the answer is no. And that's hard. But if we place false hope in doctors, if we commit to what they say without really first evaluating if it's the right advice or if they're the right person for us to listen to, we can waste a lot of time and money on people who can't really help us. I really, really feel you. It's a very scary place to be with limited funds and major health issues and no answers. Yeah, it just is. Oh, Anna, you find my story motivating? I'm glad you find it motivating. It doesn't sound motivating when I talk about it. Peter, there's no guarantee from their side. They could be trying stuff forever, but that's why you need to find the right person. You really need to know what to look for, what to ask, how to evaluate them as to whether or not they're someone you want to commit to. Because I tell you what, I did not have like one doctor like helping me through my first health crisis, but I still healed. All right. I found the people who got me to the right places and I took it from there. My first relapse and my second relapse, I had found a great doctor I worked with through both of those. And he wasn't right about what I needed 100% of the time. Like there were definitely times when I took things that did not work well for me. But here's why he's great. Like I knew from researching him online and from meeting him in person the first time, the way he talked to me, the way he listened to me, the way he shares information, I knew he was the right person to work with me. I was able to evaluate him and realize that, yes, this guy is someone who was going to be able to help me. When he didn't know how something was going to help me, he would just straight up be like, okay, I think this is going to work for you. We don't know. Here's what the trial and error process looks like. Here's a document I've made for you to help talk you through the trial and error. Here's what to look out for. If you feel this, it's okay. If you feel this, it's also okay. If you feel this, it's not okay and you should stop. He would prep me for trial and error. He would walk me through the different scenarios of what to look out for, what's okay, what's not okay. Because like there would be things, he's like, this is probably going to make you feel terrible when you take it. He's like, that's okay. It means it's working. It should make you should start feeling better after this much time. Or, if this makes you feel terrible, take this because it means you need this additional support from this supplement. Like he didn't just dump instructions on me. He treated me like a partner through all of this. And he really wanted me to understand it because he knew that that's how I was going to stick to it and get the most benefit out of it. He also enabled trial and error in all of his patients because he didn't make us buy a whole bottle of pills every time we were going to do a new experiment. He actually would have his employees like in advance, like on the weekends, like portion out trial samples into little baggies of all the different pills that he wanted people to experiment with. So I would, instead of spending, $30 on a bottle of pills, I would spend like $3 or $4 on like 8 pills to experiment with within his specific testing regimen, and that's how we quickly iterated through things much more cheaply than if I had tried doing this on my own, obviously. So you want to look for doctors who offer those types of things. Not all doctors offer that. It doesn't mean that they're bad. I also would say that like the doctor I worked with who worked really, really well with me and helped me get my health back, he's not the right doctor for everybody. I wouldn't say that he would work well with everybody here because our personalities also meshed really well. If I hadn't been who I am, I wouldn't have gotten the same results out of what he did because I'm still very type A and I will follow a plan to a T and I will do everything perfectly and exactly as he said. And I will watch myself and collect a ton of data and I want to share that data with him and he wants to hear that data. And like, we would nerd out. And like, I have a really special relationship with this doctor now because of how well we gel personality wise, in addition to like the doctor patient relationship. Whereas, like like someone else I know, someone I'm close to has been having some health issues and he would not work well with this doctor. Like the first thing I wanted to do was send him to my doctor. And I realized like, he's not going to put in the effort. He's not going to pay attention. He's not going to do all the things he needs to do to really work well with my doctor. I was like, I'm going to need to find him another doctor. I'm going to need to look for a doctor that just does the blood work and is used to just like making things as simple and thoughtless for you as possible. And I found that doctor and he's working with that doctor and it's been going well because they're the right match for each other, not just in terms of like expertise, but also in the terms of like that client-patient relationship. That's really important to get that right if it's someone you need to work with over a long period of time. We're going long today, but that's okay. I have a little bit of extra time. Peter, yeah, I mean, the thing is, Peter, if they're trying stuff for a while and it's just not working, like they just aren't helping you, you just need to leave. You need to go find someone who can, and maybe this isn't right for everyone, but my point of view was if I couldn't find the right person to work with, I was not going to waste my time, money, or hope on someone who was good enough. All right. When it came to like my health and healing and my limited money resource and my limited time and energy resource, there was no good enough. They are the right person to help me, or I would rather just not work with anyone and just live with my symptoms while searching for the person who was the right one. I would wait. I waited until I found someone who was worth the time, money, and hope, because those are limited resources that shall not be squandered when you're this ill. It's a scary thing. It's a scary place to be without support and guidance. But it worked for me. Let's see, Anna, you know where you are now and that you will heal, but sometimes it is hard to imagine the steps in between. Therefore, I like to hear other recovery stories just to expand your imagination. Okay, cool. Yeah, there's always going to be highs and lows, and it's going to be nothing you ever expected or planned. But yeah, that's cool. I'm glad it helps. Lisa says recovery stories are inspiring. Oh, Lisa, your ex is terribly bad. You can tell me stories I wouldn't believe, but yeah, you try not to go there much anymore. Good riddance. That's right. You've got a really good husband now. All right, Anna asks, at the end of the supplements, of this couch were not all you physically needed, so her technique did not 100% work for you. The supplements from the coach were not all I physically needed. So her technique did not 100% work for you. So the supplements she gave me at that time were what I needed to heal the first time. When I relapsed again, seemingly out of nowhere, it became clear to me that there was more going on with my body. It wasn't that simple. So it was enough to help me heal the first time, but I didn't have everything I needed to stay well long-term. And the relapse was not just physical, it was also mindset based. It was also mental and emotional. Supplements. Mindset was not the only thing that made me better, but at the same time, supplements were never going to make me 100% better either. I needed both. I needed the right mindset, the right habits and thoughts, and I also needed the right supplements. And also, in the case of my thyroid, the right medication to heal. And to stay well, at this point, to stay well, it's really mostly about mindset and then just basic like health maintenance stuff. And yeah, I know he really needed help. Lisa, did I have a trigger, illness, or accident or something? So when I first got ill, let's see. Okay, let me go in reverse order. So the third time I got sick, my second relapse, the trigger was an hour and a half long deep tissue massage that I had. It seemed to detox something out of my tissues, my muscle or my fat in vast quantities. And it triggered a relapse that took me months to recover from. It also gave me IBS. That massage was a doozy. The second time I got sick, aka the first time I relapsed, there isn't a clear trigger there. It wasn't like one thing happened. The first time I got ill, I was living a life very, very stressed out, completely stressed out and anxious all of the time, never happy. I was working out really, really hard. So like physically, I was very, very stressed because of how much and how often I was working out. It was a work hard, play hard lifestyle. So like I was going out drinking, staying up late a lot, not getting enough sleep a lot of the time because that was just the industry I was in. So bad. Young and stupid. I had an eating disorder, a full-blown eating disorder that was very bad and physically harming my physical and emotional self on a daily basis. So like I was ripe for a major, major crash. And what caused me to crash, the trigger as I see it now, was the day I was working out in a CrossFit gym. It was July 2010. It was over 100 degrees that day with very like 90% plus humidity. So like extremely hot. We were working out very, very hard in the gym. And that physical stressor just pushed my body over the ledge of being able to cope with all of the stress that was happening at one time. And after that first collapse in the gym, where I had like the air hunger, my muscles just went completely weak. I collapsed on the floor. I couldn't even sit up. I was lying down for 20 minutes. I was shaking as well. Severe brain fog started. And we wrote it off as heat exhaustion. But then after that initial collapse, that began happening regularly for me. And my health continued to deteriorate, until I got to the point where I was like mostly housebound, could barely walk across a block, extreme brain fog, like that whole 9 yards. It took like 6 months from that first crash to like being afraid I couldn't work anymore. So that was my trigger. And the more I learned about the body and stress, like for some people, they're living super stressed out lives. We don't even know, like 25-year-old Kristin would not have said she was stressed out. I didn't know I was stressed out. It wasn't until I learned how to not be stressed out and I experienced what it's like to live not stressed out. Only then did I realize how stressed out my life was back then. I had no idea I was living stressed out. I think many, many people have no idea how stressed out they actually are because they never live not stressed out. They just don't know the difference in the experience. And it seems like there can be different triggers for people's severe chronic fatigue. For some people, that's getting sick with a virus and that energetic load, everything that it takes the body to heal from that virus seems to be the straw that breaks the camel's back for them, and things never are the same after that. They never really heal from that. Some people, it is something physical. Like for me, it was an extremely hard workout. For other people who are ill, they walk too far one day and then they completely crash and nothing's ever the same after that again. For some people, it can be a surgery, or like I know you had your medical issues, Lisa. So it seems like if we're living these stressed out lives, it can be anything that is immensely taxing on the body. One singular event that's immensely taxing to then put the body over the edge of what it can handle and sustain and heal from. And then once we cross that ledge, like it's just a downward spiral until we catch ourselves. And our lives and our society just aren't set up to catch ourselves because we just keep pushing because we think we'll get better. Yeah, crash at the gym. So once I was in a nice home situation, I physically needed only 1 year to heal. I mean, I'd been healing for a few months in the abusive home before I left. And then it took about a year. Like I was still on supplements. I was still meditating more often. I was still learning about the healing mindset, and I was still developing the healing mindset that whole year. So like I wasn't working for most of 2013. Most of that year was just 100% of the time, like dealing with my crashes when they happened, slowing down, developing the healing mindset, developing my meditation practice, developing my inner world connection, continuing supplements, continuing to experiment with supplements and stuff here and there. But like for most of 2013, my life was focused on just healing. Mm. You feel like you're where I was at in 2013. Many helpful people, no perfect doctor, and that is why you ask. Yeah, I wouldn't put a timeline on it. Like everyone's timeline is going to be different. Some people would heal a lot faster in that situation than I did. Some people might still take longer. It's not about the destination as much as are you making the right progress in the right direction over time. That's really because even 2013, like I had setbacks, I had crashes, I had bad days, I had bad weeks. Like it wasn't just like whoop, I got better. It was the normal like everywhere before really feeling like I had secured the right habits to sustain health. So, well, it's actually been really, once again, just like last time, it was nice to talk about these things again, to get to answer questions about my past. For those of you who are new and watching, like Peter and Addison, I don't normally talk about myself and my journey this much. I'm normally answering more questions about other people's lives and journeys. But I do appreciate the questions you ask and your contributions. Those help. Oh, we have Ivan Plum. Hello, Ivan. You're a type A. You need to stop working in software. Did I stop completely wanting to get better in my field, or did I manage to progress somehow, even at a slower pace? So there's a couple answers here. So when I was well enough to work again, I went straight back into software. I just picked my career up where I had left it off. I had like past clients who wanted to work with me again. So it was easy for me to find work when I was ready. And it was more about my personality and what I bring to the team than it was about my skill sets. I'm not a developer. I don't develop. I'm not an engineer. I'm on the management side of software, as in software project management and also product management. So it's a little bit different there. I've always had just an interest in software. So like when I could, like I would just read articles about where the industry is going and what's the hot new thing. And, I just had a general interest in staying up to date on that stuff. So yeah, I did do a little bit of like reading here and there. I've only talked about this like once before, I think. I don't recommend this for people. When I was severely ill the first time, in 2013, like 2012, 2013, I was developing another software product. So I told you guys I had the app developed that I was selling and making a little bit of money off of that every month. Well, I had this project where when I could, like when I woke up and I had like 30 minutes here of not being super brain fogged, I would go work on this website. So like I was still in the industry, like when I could be, I was still having a software product developed and I was still working on marketing it. It was very, very slow. I only did it because I could do it whenever I could, which wasn't very often, and it was okay. I will say, like, I wouldn't recommend everyone to like try to like have a business or launch a business when they're really, really sick. There were things about that weren't good for me. But I think the good thing about it is that I think even when you're really, really ill, I think it's important to have a project you're working on, something you can pick up when you have the physical and mental ability to do so, and something you can put down the moment you start to feel tired, something you don't have to ever push yourself through. Because whenever you have a project you're working on, whether that's knitting or a coloring book or writing letters to your friends and loved ones, or like whatever easy little thing you can do within your energy envelope that's like a project, when you can make progress on something, even just making tiny little progress here and there, it gives you a sense of your capabilities, and it gives you a sense of yourself, and it gives you more hope and motivation when you show yourself that you can still make progress on something even when you're this ill. So I would recommend people find something they can do as a project in little tiny chunks whenever they're able to. Something light and easy that they enjoy and look forward to. I think it can be a very, very good thing. Ivan Plum. Kaiden, what made me want to start making YouTube videos? I like video. It's much easier for me to sit here and like answer questions on like live than it is for me to sit and like type a blog post. For whatever reason, like I just express better through talking than I do through writing. And I wanted it to be a way to reach more people. You know, YouTube makes it easier for people to find me if they want to learn about things like this. And I just feel really compelled to share my experience and my message of what it takes to heal, because I don't hear it enough. I don't see enough people being exposed to these ideas and thoughts and messages. And I've spent time not putting this content out there, and I'm always thinking about it when I'm not. Like I need to have just like once a week for an hour, in today's case, an hour and a half, where I sit and just talk to the people who want this help and want this support, and want the perspective of someone who's been there and gotten through it and has something to share. That's it. All right. Any more questions? I will be rolling off within like 8 minutes. I got to hop off at 2:30 because I actually, oh gosh, I do have another call at 2:30. I was thinking I have one at 3, but I think I have one at 2:30. If you have other questions, I do have one at 2:30, so I'll need to hop off a couple minutes early so I can like go get a glass of water and go to the bathroom. If there's any other questions, I can answer them now in the next like 3 minutes. It has stopped raining, by the way. It was pouring when this started, and now the sky's out and it's cloudy and it's blue sky and beautiful and sunny. But all right, if there's no other questions, then we'll do this again same time next week. 1 p.m. Eastern, normally just goes an hour, but if I have time, we'll do an hour and a half. And if there's enough questions, we'll do an hour and a half. If you want to continue connecting with people like you've been connecting in the chat room over here, there is a private Facebook group. You can go request access to that. The link to that will be in the description of this video. Once this is over, you can refresh the page. Maybe it might take a couple times, but then the description will show up and there's a link to that Facebook page. You can request access. It's just there for you guys to connect, and I'll post in there like once a week with something. And if you found this video useful, it'd be great if you would share it with someone else who could use this message, who it would help in this time. Oh, Ivan, you're a PM also, but doing it while you're sick was crazy. I didn't like the meetings. I feel you. And you can always go back to it. The great thing is it's easy to be a PM while you're remote. It's easy to find like smaller web dev shops who only want like a part-time PM. That's how I started off, like back in 2013, August 2013. I started working again like 5-10 hours a week from home. I was doing remote PM work, you know, and it's a good way to get back into the workforce, just like small chunks of PM work here and there, because like small dev shops, boutique dev shops want people like that. We can talk about that more next time, Ivan, if you're around next week. If you guys want to get reminders for my videos, you can go to my channel, my main channel, and it should show you my upcoming live streams that I have scheduled. I have them scheduled every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern for the rest of April. You can go hit the set reminder button under those videos, and YouTube should remind you when they're coming up. And this was great. I'm so glad to connect with you guys again. And I hope you guys stay well. This is definitely a time for like self-compassion, making life as simple as you can, really honing those skills for managing anxiety and stress, and looking at this as a time to create as much stability for yourself as you can. All right. Love you guys so much. Sending you love and health. I'm Kristin.